A furious battle of the union is set to take place this week as SNP politicians fight over how Scottish independence should be taken forward. SNP Deputy Leader Keith Brown confirmed today the Indy Ref 2 would be central to the SNP's election manifesto in May as the SNP unveiled a roadmap to a referendum on Scottish independence. The plan claims any attempt by the UK government to challenge the legality of the referendum in the courts will be vigorously opposed as the May Holyrood elections draw nearer. But tensions flared between party members and politicians during today's Independence Assembly event where Scotland's Constitutional Affairs Secretary Michael Russell set out the plans. Many advocates of a Plan B approach to independence including CLLR Chris McElhenney together and Western Isles MP Angus MacNeil struggled to get their views heard. The Western Isles MP wants the May election itself to be a plebiscite for Indy Ref 2 and dismiss the leadership's new plan as based on hope. The senior MP added, "Independence supporters must grasp that on balance any referendum is extremely unlikely to happen in the next 5 years. Westminster or the courts will see to that," Mr. MacNeil continued. Chat function disabled so hard to have dialogue and give an opinion and can't see what members are thinking. Another member claimed hundreds of members were shouting at the leadership and told chiefs to quit waffling and get on with it. Today, Nicola Sturgeon said Boris Johnson is frightened of democracy on the question of another referendum on Scottish independence. The Scottish First Minister quoted Robert Burns during an interview on the BBC's Andrew Marr show, claiming the Prime Minister's opposition to a second referendum reminded her of the poet's timorous beastie. Colleague and Deputy First Minister John Swinney said an independence referendum could play a big part in Scotland's economy from coronavirus. Mr. Swinney stressed a parliamentary majority supporting independence in the next Scottish election would demonstrate the will for a referendum. He made clear the Prime Minister refusing one would be an anti-democratic stance. This afternoon, UK ministers, however, were contemplating the SNP strategy after a weekend of nationalist commitments. While Mr. Johnson has dismissed any concept of a second independence vote, the Tory administration is becoming increasingly worried. One senior UK government source told Daily Express said the rising threat from the SNP would be countered head-on without question. Another union strategy source added to this publication, "We will be looking at Scotland very closely in the coming weeks and months." A new union policy committee, details of which were revealed yesterday, also met this week with senior UK ministers chaired by Michael Gove to discuss strategy for dealing with the rising threat of Scottish independence. It comes as a series of opinion polls which found voters across the UK believe Scotland is likely to become independent within the next decade. The Sunday Times commissioned a series of surveys across the 4 nations of the United Kingdom to gauge attitudes towards the Union. In Scotland, the panel-based poll found 49% backed independence compared to 44% against, a margin of 52% to 48% if the undecideds are excluded. The poll found the SNP way ahead on 70%, up 7 points since the last elections in 2016, while the Tories were down 6 points on 25%, with Labour down 5 points on 19%. Scottish Conservatives leader Douglas Ross, however, said his party is doing slightly better in some opinion polls than it was at the same point before the 2016 elections. He added, "Of course the SNP went into that election with a majority and came out of it having lost their majority, because the Scottish Conservatives more than doubled their seats from 15 to 31. So absolutely everything's to play for in the run-up to the elections this year." Nick Thomas Simons, Scotland's Shadow Home Secretary, said Labour was against the idea of a second independence referendum. Asked if SNP's success in the forthcoming Holyrood elections would give them a mandate for a second Scottish independence referendum and would Labour support that, he said, "I think it would be a profound mistake to take the election of May in Scotland or indeed any other part of the UK for granted, and if any party is taking votes for granted then they clearly shouldn't be doing that."